So, all right, you want to take a break, or are they?
No. We're gonna start up.
Are they ready?
Yeah, we're gonna bring up the colonel and the general.
They tell us they're there.
And thanks for the invitation to speak, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, especially in and around the hypersonics area. As you know, it is near and dear to our hearts, especially where I work at Bush Combat Development Complex, but really for the nation. So what, in your eyes, is the next big step for delivering the next generation of advanced hypersonics? You've been in the game for a while, so we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for the question. First, let me just start with saying thanks for the opportunity to share a couple of thoughts today on behalf of our great Army and what our nation's trying to accomplish as it relates to the grander global community and our national defense strategy. It's certainly an honor to lead this organization and an honor to be part of not only the Army team that's doing so well, but the joint team that's making this happen across multiple domains and multiple programs. It's really quite amazing the pace that things are moving and the focus that our nation has, particularly on hypersonics. That includes some of our mid-range capabilities, as well as our high-energy laser capabilities, and a host of other critical outcomes that this organization supports our Army with. So we're super proud to be part of that. So let me just start with saying thanks for the opportunity. The hypersonic mission set as part of our national defense strategy is a critical asset, right? It's about how we reach at long distances at pace and speed to provide a capability to our combatant commands to prosecute the direction of our leadership and of our nation and of our military. We are in this position because of and a position to move forward because of the great work done by the S&T communities prior. You know, folks like Sandia National Labs, DARPA National Labs, our S&T communities here at Redstone, and the DevComs that are in the Army Futures Command. All of those set the conditions for where we are today, which is to get an initial capability. That initial capability will probably be set by the Army in 23. Super proud of the work the team has done, followed by the Navy in 25 and the Air Force somewhere in the mix of that. At the same time, as we're working on the offensive piece, the Missile Defense Agency, of course, is working on the defensive piece. So the message is that it really is a national effort, and it really is a collaborative effort across the services and our agencies. And we haven't really operated with this collaborative partnership and this strength for some number of years. So it really has been an amazing experience to be part of that. What we have done is moved from an S&T environment to an operational environment. In FY21, the Army fielded its first hypersonic unit at Joint Base Lewis McChord. They are complete through NET, they're complete through certification, air movement certification. They have done amazing work. They just got through doing a deployment training operation and kill chain work. So we're super proud of all that work. We did that in parallel to finishing the design of the missile system itself. We had a little different strategy than traditional programs based on what our nation's asked us to do. All of that, to answer your question directly, sets the conditions for the first fielding to get the initial capability out there. That is not the end game. That's only the start point and the entry, the gateway, if you will, to the future. What we have to do now is accelerate how we want to make improvements to the system. And those happen at the soldier level, and they also happen at the technical level. And so we have a very detailed roadmap between Vice Admiral Wolf, my battle buddy in the Navy, my partner in this program, where we want to go in 23, where we want to go in 25, where we want to go in 27. And we actually have asked the S&T communities, again, the Sandias and the S&T labs inside the Army and Navy, where should we be looking in 2035, right? Because it's not good enough just to get where we need to be. We got to get there. That's the near-term focus, but we've got to look to the future so we're not in this position in 2035 where we may not have the capabilities that our our peer adversaries might have. And so we've really got to focus out to the future.
No, that's insightful, sir. I really appreciate how you tied that into not only, you know, NDS, but with, I know the work that you're doing with the joint team. And I'm glad you spoke a little bit about the future. So I want your thoughts on how do we accelerate the technology. And selfishly, I'm going to talk a little bit about not only, or ask you about not only how you're doing in government, working with industry, but also how you bring academia in to accelerate, right? So, you know what we do at Texas A&M, TEAS, and Bush Combat Development Complex, and that is, you know, we have really world-class research, and then the test facilities that are coming online in February of 23. So love to hear your thoughts. How do you bring that triad together?
Yeah, that's really an interesting part of this whole program. And I think a part that, as you're bringing out, is unique to this program. We believe, Vice Admiral Wolf and myself, in our office, our culture is we believe that transparency equals speed. And we believe that through transparent partnerships, that we actually empower the partnership to accelerate decisions and accelerate and aim the focus of the desired outcomes. And so we don't get offshoots off on some tangent that really isn't where we want to go. That can be a challenge, right? Sometimes where the government wants to go doesn't necessarily match where academic wants to go. It doesn't necessarily match where industry wants to go. And so we've established a very deliberate governance process that is 100% transparent between the government agencies, our industry partners, and our academic partners, right? Texas A&M being one of them, Clemson, University of Alabama. There's a host of players here. That's really important because we often hear industry, or we often hear a lab that are working on some niche capability, right? It's some unique aspect of a hypersonic weapon. What we sometimes have missed in the past is the transition of that unique application to a combat outcome, to a combat capability. So we have established through the Army Futures Command a really strong relationship with several universities, Texas A&M being one of them, and we're engaged with directing the research that they're doing on hypersonics, because there are some types of research, what we call basic research, what we call 6.1 and 6.2 money, that is really broad, right? You want to try it, you don't know if it's going to work. It's just a really interesting idea. It's called basic research. When you get to 6.3 and 6.4 money, that's called applied research. The difference is, at that point, you're trying to apply it to a combat outcome. And sometimes we lose that focus. And what we've been able to do with Rodney Bowersox and the team at Texas A&M is really give them very specific areas to research with their graduate students, you know, at the PhD level, of stuff that we know we want in 25, 27, 29, 30. We know kind of what we want. We know the characteristics, but we need someone to invent it. we need somebody who doesn't have, who has an academic learning attitude, that understands that it's not work for work's sake, it's work for outcome's sake, right? And when we can do that with our academic institutions, we get multiple positive outcomes. Number one, we train our academic institutions, and we partner with our academic institutions for value-added work for our nation, right? It's value work that our nation needs. Second is we actually create a future workforce that is, it doesn't matter if they go into industry, it doesn't matter if they come into the government or where they go. What we do is we create a workforce for the future and technologies that we don't currently have a workforce for. So that's really an important part of it. And the third part that's really important into the academic tie, and I'll bridge to the other ones in a minute, is that we also create the infrastructure for small scale S&T testing that we don't currently have in our nation, right? We can't take every test to a single lab. We have to have multiple ways at multiple places to test. at the OSD level, I think most people are tracking, they established a Joint Hypersonic Technology Office. And that's a growing organization. It's a maturing organization. They're working through what their roles and missions are. And we're helping them do that, and they're helping us. And it's a good partnership. But they started a consortium of universities. That consortium is led by Texas A&M. One of the reasons in my mind that's so important is we don't need universities to duplicate work.
Yes.
We don't need the same work at this university and the same work at that university. That the consortium is supposed to be doing is allocating our S&T desires across academic centers of excellence that have that particular skill set instead of duplicating the work, right? That's really an important part for the JTO. The second part, as it relates to the academic and the industry, is industry also is developing a work set and a skill set of employees that can do this. If they can team with intern programs from the universities, if they can team with, and we started an intern program here in our government office. I think this year we had 8 or 9 interns from different universities in hypersonics and directed energy. So we can bring them into this value-added work that's part of our national defense strategy and cause that early learning to happen to build the future workforce. And so industry needs that same thing, right? I mean, it's hypersonics as a technology is relatively new to everybody that's in industry. We're building the first factories right now to build hypersonic weapons. I mean, they're brand new car smell factories. And building that is part of this transition of S&T knowledge in the government lab systems, in the academic institutions, to industry, to government, so we can get to the pace we need to when it comes to the actual productionization of hypersonic weapons. And then this last piece that is associated is the transparency piece is when we run our programs, our model is a little bit different than a traditional acquisition model, meaning that we follow the rules and the laws. We don't get any waivers for that stuff. We don't get any waivers from the law. All those apply, but we bring them into every meeting. There are no meetings that I have that don't have my lab people, my academic people, my industry partners, and my government partners in the same meeting. We share our cost models. We share our integrated master schedules across all of our primes. That's unusual behavior for industry and the government. But we don't have time to have 6 separate schedules. It's too hard. We formed a government industry board of directors. They have one integrated master schedule across 6 companies. At the first, when we presented this idea to them, they're like, "That's it. You're out of your mind. We've never done business like that. We're not sure we don't want one company to see our cost data. We don't want one company to see our critical path." And so at first, 3 years ago, that was a hard conversation to have. And to their credit of industry and academics in our labs, they trusted the idea, trusted the construct, trusted that this crazy Thurgood idea would work, and it does. And now it's such a normal behavior. It's odd when one of our partners is not in the meeting with us. And because we're transparent across that, we shift work between companies all the time. One company might be behind, they might have an expertise. We might ask academia to do something for us that they traditionally haven't done. We may need to focus on this, put some people on that. And it really is quite phenomenal. This model. It's not necessarily, I would say, an original model.
Yeah.
It's just an application a little bit different within the rule sets we've been given that we operate by, from Congress and from our national leadership. But it's really quite phenomenal to watch the maturation of this. And we're by no far perfect by any stretch. Excuse me. And we have a lot of work ahead of us. But it really is amazing the pace we've been able to keep.
Yeah, no, I have been witness to what you are talking about, and I think the model, honestly, is allowing us to further this advanced technology. I mean, so we really appreciate all your efforts and all the efforts of the team. And we look forward to, pumping some of your tests through the ballistic air optics and materials test range here when it opens in February of 23. So my last question, sir, you've been doing this for quite some time. You stood it up. You fell into some punji sticks. You got yourself out. You hit some obstacles. You went over them or through them. Eventually we all have to move on. What would you say to your successor? What guidance or what advice would you give to your successor when that eventually happens 100 years from now?
well, I hope the Army will keep me as long as they'll let me stay. I'm happy to serve in the Army. It's a real privilege to be in our Army and to serve this nation. I've been doing it for 37 plus years. So, and I just love being a soldier, and I love being around soldiers. And I consider all my industry partners and my lab partners all soldiers. That's how I see them in my mind. They're just partners, great partners, and with all the dignity and respect they deserve. I think there are a couple of key things moving forward that we have to watch as a nation, and we have to watch as an organization. The first, and probably the most important, is we have to take care of our people. Right? This is wicked hard work. This office that we have here, this is not an 8 to 5 job. You're all in all the time, and the team that comes here and have sacrificed both their time and efforts have just done incredible. So we have to protect them. We have to prepare them for the future. Some of them are going to be you one day, and some are going to be me one day, and we've got to help them be that and take care of our people first and foremost. Without the people in the labs, in the academic institutions, in our industry partners, you can't make things. You can't do design. You can't do S&T work. You can't build hypersonic weapons. You can't build directed energy weapons. So I spend a lot of time of my time on professional development, career development. We have a very deliberate education program. We have an intern program. We have a school program. We have a reading program. We have a really strong developmental program for our military and our civilians, and including when I say that, I mean our industry partners and everybody. It's not, I don't separate them like people traditionally do. To me, it's that team. They're all my soldiers. I see them all dressed just like me. I tell them that all the time. You look really good in your suit, but in my mind, you're dressed just like me. So we got to take care of the people. Part of taking care of the people is understanding that leadership and doing wicked hard things like this are inherently risky. And it's not about risk aversion, it's about risk engagement and risk acceptance. I am not a risk adverse person. And the reason I'm not a risk adverse person is I spend so much time studying the risk. I am a risk engagement person. If I understand the risk and what I'm doing, I'm happy to accept that if it is acceptable. If it's not, and I don't understand it, I'm not going to accept that risk.
Right.
The reason that's important for this organization is you cannot make the assumption that everything you're going to try for the first time in history is going to work right every time. That's a bad assumption, right? So you have to internally have the capability to have hard conversations amongst your team, amongst the family, so to speak, and you got to protect that family externally. Because if you shoot everybody that comes in your office every time because they say something didn't work, then pretty soon you're going to have a culture that doesn't accept risk. You're going to have a culture that is zero defect, which is not going to be successful. So you've got to engage it. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have hard conversations. That doesn't mean that we don't react well to every piece of news. But at the end of the day, what I try to do as a leader and what I would recommend is, even in the hard conversations, have the team leave the office with a smile on their face, right? Have them leave knowing that we still love them. We got to fix it. Thanks for the information. Let's figure out how to do it. And it's about not accepting that we know the problem. That's only half of getting to the solution. A lot of people come in and say, hey, we have a problem. And I go, okay, now what's the solution? Well, we haven't thought about that part yet. You got to have a culture that identifies the problem and then identifies a solution for the problem. And sometimes that solution is made as you go. When you're inventing technologies, sometimes you don't know the right solution. You know the right vector, you know the right direction, and sometimes you just have to move forward. Right. And take some risks that you'll learn and adjust as you go. The other thing that I tell the team all the time is we have a theme every year in our organization, depending on what phase of the mission we are in. Last year in 2021, our theme was deliver on time. It was about getting the unit delivered. It was about getting equipment delivered. And so we put a little dot on their watch, DOT, which means deliver on time. So every time you look at your watch, remember deliver on time. This year in 22, our theme is focus on the small things and finish the game. In other words, right now in hypersonics, mid-range, high-energy lasers, hyper-electric vehicles, armor protection systems, you name the system, we're at the point now where we have to finish the design and get it to the unit. And so keeping the focus of the team is really the heart of that issue. That's why we chose focuses on small things, finish the game. Yeah. We as an Army have learned through the Army Futures Command, through this organization and other organizations, if we want to move at pace, we're going to have some risk. We're going to have to go forward knowing we don't know all the answers. And so let me give you an example of that, and this may take me a second to draw this out. In our normal process, we go through a JSIDS process and write a requirement document called the CDD, Capabilities Design Document. And that takes a couple of years to write by the requirements community, and it's written by people who may or may not understand the technology, but they know what they kind of want. They don't know if it can be built or not, but they know what they want. And that gets thrown over the wall to the material side, and then they try to find somebody that can make this thing. And that takes several years. So think about what the Army's done with the idea of an abbreviated CDD, right? It's no longer thresholds and objectives that are dogmatic, that if you can't do it, we don't want it. And by the way, we don't even know if we can do it. We now have a document that is characteristics. Okay, look, we're going to move at pace. We're going to move fast, and we want it to look like this. We want it to go about this far. We don't even know if it can be done. We have no idea if it can even be produced. And that's a very powerful tool for our Army. And so that allows us to get to a point where in our world, we call it prototyping. And prototyping is a really important word that our future has to understand. And prototyping is not S&T work. S&T work is called invention and demonstration. They can do one of a thing or a subscale of a thing. Prototyping in our lexicon is giving a combat unit set of equipment to a combat unit to try operationally. That's prototyping. And we do that at pace, so we actually decide whether we want it or not before we spend 3 or 4 years in a JSIDS process and 4 or 5 years in a milestone process. Think about how different the model is. And in the advent of the Futures Command, the advent of this organization, that linkage with the ASALT has made all that possible. Is it exactly perfect? No, but it's not wrong. It's not a miss, right? And so we've learned as an Army, and we've written some new guidance and new policies to help us stay aligned. And the Secretary and the Chief, in my opinion, have done a phenomenal job with that. That all is part of what our future, those that go beyond me, must keep in place. They must focus on those things. And I'll just end with this part before we go to concluding questions or comments. But I tell the team this all the time: if you build the team, they'll build the widget. You know, in the Army, it's people first. That is such solid guidance from our leadership that it's intuitively natural to us.
Yes.
And we feel it, but we finally, you know, our great Chief of Staff finally put it in better words than any of us can put it in. Focus on the team, the widget will follow. Right. And when people on the team understand the importance of it, why it's important, the National Defense Strategy, why it's important they came to work, why it's important that a student got an A on a test and a project to do the design work in a lab at a wind tunnel down at Texas A&M or up at AECD or wherever it might be. That's critically important for us to understand and drive the future, because the future is going to happen. We can be part of it, or we can watch it happen.
That's right.
And in our recommendation and what we can do, and I think what the Army has proved, or demonstrated is a better word, what the Army's demonstrated is that we can behave differently and be successful. It's not going to be 100% success all the time. If it were easy, you wouldn't need us.
Right.
It's hard. Sometimes in flight tests, we just went through a flight test, very, very successful, and we focused on one piece of it that didn't go very well. And there are 36,000 other things that went perfectly well, and we focused on that one thing. And sometimes as the leaders, we have to help the community think that, we deployed a unit. They did an entire mission set. We lowered the cost on testing. We built new test facilities. We built the future. And this one piece didn't quite go how we wanted it to, still demonstrated almost everything we wanted to, and yet we focused on that one little piece. We've got to give the team credit for what they've done. Academic for their piece of it. We couldn't be here without the stuff that the academic institutions have done. We couldn't be here without the stuff the S&T community has done. We're standing on their shoulders to get an operational capability at pace for our nation, so we can be at advantage at the time of conflict, should we ever get to that point.
Right. Well, sir, thanks for sharing your words of wisdom, and I can say from Texas A&M and T's and the Bush Combat, we'd love to be in Richto's huddle when you call the plays for the nation, for the Army. We'd love to be your teammate, and we strive to be a good teammate and one that can deliver those outcomes that the country is looking for. So I appreciate your time, sir, and I appreciate your dedication to the mission, to the people, and to the country. So I look forward to seeing you again here shortly, and then your next 100 years in that office. So,
yeah. Well, listen, let me just add our thanks on behalf of our Army and behalf of our nation for not only what Texas A&M is doing, but for what all the institutions are doing that are part of this. It is a team sport. It takes the entire industrial base to put the oars in the water and move the ship forward. It is an incredible opportunity to lead this organization. There's just an incredible team here across academic, across industry, across multiple government agencies, and to watch it happen and to watch the dedication is really quite humbling. It's not very often in our careers that our nation points its finger at you and says, we need you to do something different. And that different is this team that we have together and this partnership. And so let me just say thank you to you for your service to our nation as one of our great veterans, and also the service of our academic institutions and our industry and government partners. It's an incredible opportunity. We have a big road ahead of us. The fight is not over. It's hard every day, and we love it. And because of that, and because of the outcome that we know we need for our nation, it's a pleasure to come to work every day. It's certainly not easy, but it is an honor to serve our nation and to serve our soldiers. And God bless them wherever they're deployed right now, and bless their families that are at home watching after them. And they deserve everything we can do for them. So thanks for let me share a few words today. God bless you guys. God bless our great Army and our great nation. You guys have a great day.
All right. Thanks, American Future Series, for hosting as well. They really help get the word out to our community. All right, sir. Have a great weekend.
Okay. Thanks. Good to see you.
Okay.
And all those thank yous right back at you, fellas. Gentlemen, that was outstanding. Colonel and General, we thank you both very much for your time this morning, and certainly for your incredible service for year after year after year on behalf of our great nation.